A hush fell across the sterile expanse of the hospital's private suite as Liam Spencer's eyes fluttered open to a world cloaked in unbroken darkness. A tendril of morning light slipped past the heavy curtains, yet Liam could not see it, could not distinguish the pastel glow on his pillow or the gentle curve of the force stand at his bedside. He lay still for a long moment, heart hammering with the realization that his world had changed forever. The tumor that once gnawed at the fibers of his brain had been wrestled back by the cutting-edge procedure, an experimental therapy that defied every prognosis, but at the cost of his sight. The surgeon's words still echoed in his mind. "You're alive," but the optic nerves did not survive the infiltration. And so here he was, alive, but blind. He tested the feeling in his limbs, flexing his fingers, wiggling his toes, marveling that every limb still belonged to him. He drew in a cautious breath, tasting the slightly metallic tang of antiseptic on his tongue, and reminded himself how close he'd come to not breathing at all. A soft rustle beside him made him startle. "Liam?" A gentle voice, threaded with relief and trembling emotion. Hope Logan was at his side, kneeling on the floor by his bed, her knees creaking on the cold tile. Her perfume, white tea and green apple, drifted to his nostrils, and he felt her hand slip into his, her fingers warm and quivering. "It's me," she whispered. "Hope." His heart tripped, torn between joy and shame. "Hi," he managed, voice ragged. He wanted to see her, to drink in her expression, but the world offered only darkness. For a moment he lay there, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing, the faint beep of the monitors, the hush of the hospital corridor beyond. He could almost believe this was a dream, and not the new reality that awaited him. "You're awake," she breathed, as if discovering gravity for the first time. "Oh, thank God." She drew his hand to her heart. "I was so afraid." He tightened his grip, marveling at the spark of hope in his chest. But guilt stabbed at him, guilt that he'd kept the full truth from her, guilt that his blindness would burden her life, guilt that he'd come so close to death that she might lose him anyway. He swallowed. "Hope, I'm sorry." Her thumb brushed his palm. "Shoo, you don't have to say anything yet." He closed his eyes, letting her presence fill the void. Beneath the bedrail, his legs felt foreign like someone else's legs, and he willed himself to remember that they were his. He called up the memory of his wedding to Hope and their unmade promises of being there for each other, in sickness and in health, for better or for worse. And he realized that the vow he had made without sight had been a vow to trust even in darkness. He exhaled slowly. He began. "Yes." Her voice hovered. "I'm alive." As if that ever-ending darkness could hold him, he squeezed her hand. Her tears fell onto his palm. "I know," she whispered. "And I love you." They sat in silence for a long minute, joined by breath and heartbeat and the hushed machinery that measured his fragile life. Then the door opened softly, and Dr. Mercer, a tall woman with kind eyes behind rimless glasses, stepped in, chart in hand. "Morning, Mr. Spencer," she said, voice professional yet gentle. "Good to see you awake." Liam inclined his head. "Thank you, doctor." She placed the chart on the bedside table. "The surgery was a success in terms of removing the mass. We were able to excise nearly all of the tumor. However, the trade-off was severe damage to the optic pathway." "I'm so sorry." He nodded, accepting the news that his world had vanished in the name of saving his life. Dr. Mercer continued, "Your other functions remain intact, though you may experience some side effects, balance issues, occasional migraines, nerve pain. We'll manage them as best we can. I'll refer you to a specialist in vision rehabilitation." Liam swallowed. Will I ever see again? The doctor's eyes were sorrowful. At this point, the damage is permanent. Regenerative treatments are still experimental. I don't want to give you false hope, but we will work on helping you adapt. She offered a sympathetic smile. Hope will be instrumental in your recovery. At her mention, Hope squeezed his hand. Liam exhaled. He realized then that his life would be measured in steps taken with a cane, in braille, and in shapes he'd build in his mind to compensate for a world he could no longer perceive with his eyes. The days that followed blurred into a montage of rehabilitation. A cane's tap-tap on the tiled floor led him down hospital hallways. A cane's tap-tap in the garden guided him under a sky he could only imagine. He learned to identify voices by their timbre, to sense lighting shifts by temperature on his skin, to navigate by memory and muscle memory. Hope was at his side through every exercise, holding his elbow for guidance, reading aloud the names of the objects he touched, and encouraging him when frustration pricked his spirit. Each attempt brought its own sting. When he first tried to bathe himself and water sluiced across his feet without warning, or when he fumbled the silver fork at dinner, the clatter echoing like a drum of shame. But Hope never wavered. She would gently murmur, "You're doing great." One more try, and he would stand straighter, determined that if his sight was gone, his resolve would not be. Night times were the hardest. In the silence of their shared bedroom, the weight of darkness pressed around him. The faint hum of the air conditioner, the rustle of the sheets, the steady rise and fall of Hope's breath all became anchors in the night. He would wake and think he heard footsteps, only to realize it was his own breathing echoing. She would wake too, wrapping him in her arms and reminding him that he was not alone. Then, one afternoon as Hope helped him practice reading Braille, Dr. Mercer entered again, her face grave. "Liam, may I have a word?" She led him and Hope into the glass-walled consultation room. The afternoon sun slanted through the blinds, casting striped shadows across the table. Hope's hand found his. Dr. Mercer placed a thin, yellowing scan on the table, an MRI from the surgery's follow-up. "The margins of resection were clear," she said, voice clinical. "But I want to be honest, gliomas are notorious for recurrence. We'll need to monitor for any signs of regrowth indefinitely." She tapped the image. "There's no evidence of residual tumor now, but that could change at any moment." Liam's chest tightened. He lifted his hand to his chest as if he could ward off the threat. Hope's face drained of color. "Doctor," she whispered. "What does that mean?" Dr. Mercer looked at both of them. "It means that while we've won a battle, the war may not be over. You must prepare for the possibility that the tumor could return, and with it, all the trials of treatment." She sighed. "That uncertainty will be the new constant in your life." Liam felt the ground shift under him. He imagined the tumor returning like a storm on the horizon, threatening to strip away everything he'd built, his marriage to Hope, his career, the simple joy of holding her hand in the garden. He swallowed. He began, searching for the words. "I can't live like that." Hope's hand squeezed his. "We'll face it together," she promised. The doctor nodded. "You have each other, and a strong support network. That will be vital." Later, as they left the hospital, Hope guided him to the car, each step taken as a testament to their bond. She paused beside the vehicle. "I'll drive," she said. He inhaled her scent, the tang of white tea and green apple comforting him. "Thank you," he whispered. She leaned down and planted a kiss on his cheek. "We'll manage this, Liam. One day at a time." In the days that followed their return home, Hope transformed their master bedroom into a sanctuary for Liam's recovery. Soft, non-slip rugs, a Braille-labeled nightstand, an audio system that read books aloud. She studied guides on assisting visually impaired loved ones and recruited friends to bring over meals and check on them. At night, they lay side by side, hands entwined, and Hope would whisper stories of the sky. Of sunrise's first blush, of sunset's molten gold, of clouds drifting lazy and white, so that even if Liam could no longer see, he could still savor the world's beauty in her words. Liam, for his part, poured himself into adapting, mastering a white cane, learning to navigate the Forrester estate's winding halls, memorizing the layout of every room in their home. He returned to the office, greeting colleagues with warmth, relying on digital readers and braille devices. Despite the darkness, he discovered a heightened acuity in other senses. He could sense tension in the conference room by the way footsteps clicked, discern a change in fabric by the brush of cloth against his fingertips. Slowly, he carved a new identity, one not defined by sight but by spirit. Yet beneath their tentative progress, a shadow lingered, coiled in the back of their minds. The doctor's warning echoed in every quiet moment. The tumor could recur at any time. Hope found herself startled at every headache Liam complained of, every flicker of imbalance, every glimpse of fear in his voice. She tried to hide her worry, but at night the weight of what if pressed heavily. What if the tumor returned and their fragile peace shattered? What if the next surgery cost them more than Liam could bear? But she refused to let those fears rule her. When dread rose, she reminded herself of his laughter, of his courage in darkness, of the life they were building together. She would kiss him at dawn, whispering, "You are my light," and in his heart, Liam felt the truth of that sentiment. Weeks turned to months, and each routine scan found no regrowth. The couple dared to hope. They celebrated small milestones. Liam navigating the kitchen without assistance, Hope mastering the art of reading aloud from braille prints, a picnic in the garden where Liam felt the sun's warmth on his face as Hope described the ship of clouds overhead. On their anniversary, Hope arranged a serenade beneath their bedroom window, a violinist playing their song as Liam stood, cane in hand, listening to every note. Towards the final passage of the piece, Hope's voice rose through an open window. "I see you more clearly than anyone," she sang softly, and Liam felt tears on his cheeks. In that moment, despite the darkness, he knew he was seen. Yet always, the specter of recurrence hovered. At the annual checkup, Dr. Mercer examined his scans with her customary care. She leaned back, breath gentle but measured. "For now, everything is stable," she said, voice warm. Liam exhaled, a sound of both relief and longing. Hope wiped his hand with a smile that still trembled at the edges. "But Dr. Mercer's next words were a reminder of the uncertainty. "Please keep in mind, though, that gliomas can recur even after years of remission. You must remain vigilant." Liam nodded, the echo of those words settling into his bones. On the drive home, Hope reached across the console and took his hand. "We'll keep living," she said, voice firm yet soft as velvet. "We'll live fully, in light or dark, for as long as we can." He squeezed her fingers, leaning into the promise. And so their life carried on, two souls bound by love, navigating a world of shadows with courage, resilience, and the determination to cherish each dawn, each heartbeat, each breath, as the miracle they were. For even in darkness, hope was his light, and in their shared strength, they found the resolve to face whatever tomorrow might bring. In the ever-turning wheel of uncertainty, they clung to the one certainty they held. That love, once kindled, could burn bright enough to pierce any shadow, illuminating even the deepest night with the promise of a new day.